I think there's two sides of it. I think there's the patient experience side, and I think there's the practice side of it. From a practice side of it, yes, it is an additional cost, but it's going to, once you get the systems in place, it's going to save you money in the long run, because it's going to save you money on staffing and days worked in the office. It just is. I have the stats to back it up. Alyssa Carter has the stats to back it up.
I have the stats to back it up.
Yeah, it's irrefutable. So in the end, it will save you money. And for me, it's made my daily life less chaotic. To be able to work, I think that's where our profession is really changing. Is we work more on a computer now than we work in a mouth now, or maybe not more, but we work a lot more on the computer than we used to, and the amount of time that we're in the mouth is less. So, from a practice standpoint, I personally believe, based on the numbers, that it's a no-brainer financially. But let's take it to another step. What's it mean for the patient? For the patient, let's say that we can save our patients 4 appointments over the course of their treatment coming into our practice. There's an article that was written that a medical dental appointment, no matter what the length of the appointment, is a minimum of 2 hours out of that person's day. So that's 2 hours of trying to get out of work, go pick up a kid, come back, or if it's them just getting out of work and getting there. Typically, they'll wind up taking the second half of the day off if it's an afternoon appointment. So it's about convenience for the patient too. And if, quote, our profession is in trouble because of, this, that, and the other, shouldn't we be doing everything we can to make our treatments as easy for our patients as we can? It's just like, why would we want to make it any more convenient than we have to? When the patients come in for their consults in our practice, say, well, how often am I going to have to come in? Well, if it's a clear aligner patient with dental monitoring, I tell them 2 to 4 times in a year. That's how often you're going to have to come in. So for those of us that are busy in life, which is everybody, what would that be worth to you to make your life that much more convenient? And I said this on a podcast we did before, if we could give a patient a pill, they take the pill and they call us when their teeth are straight to come pick up their retainers, everybody would sign up for that. They don't want to come into our office. They have better things to do with their time. So the statement, I'm doing just fine, to me, I hate that statement. I hate I'm doing just fine, because why would you want to settle? Like, when it comes to our health, when it comes to our marriages, when it comes to our parenting, do we ever just look to do just fine, or would we always try to get better at it? And why would we not try to get better at every aspect of our practice that we can every day, not just clinically, but from efficiency standpoint? And then for me, it's allowed me to work less days. That's changed a little bit as we've acquired these practices, because I'm a little bit busy with that. But by this efficiency that we've set up, that's allowing us to acquire these other practices and eventually bring in other doctors. And it's going to be a lot easier to train them to take over these roles that we've been filling clinically.
I feel like it's becoming a lost art, kind of like Tweed. I mean, in terms of, like, you're not seeing a lot of wire bending being taught in residencies anymore either. And I think some of the giants that were taking that on are retiring, or unfortunately may have even passed away. I think Roth maybe has morphed into Face, which is I think Doug Knight has been a big part of that in San Francisco as well. Yeah, I think, but that study group, lives on, but you have to go outside of your education to learn it. To your point, it's something that you have to do almost outside of residency. I don't know why it's not being taught in schools, to be honest with you, Glenn. I feel like it's becoming almost a lost knowledge that you have to seek out on your own, unfortunately, because I have a lot of people that when I lecture, I talk about and I show TMD cases that I then subsequently will detail with Invisalign post-splint therapy. And then I have a bunch of people ask, well, where can I go to learn this? And I said, I wish I could lead you to the direction. My father taught me everything I know in terms of how to manage TMD.
So you do a fair number of splints. Do you charge for the splint itself, or do you include that as part of the orthotherapy at an increased price?
So we charge for the exam. which we normally don't charge for consultations, but for a TMD exam, we do charge because it's a longer exam. Obviously, it's
I
much
know,
more
and I don't
involved.
do that, and I should.
Yeah, we charge 380 for the TMD exam because it's about an hour of time that the patient's in the practice, and of that, it's about half an hour of doctor time, honestly.
Yeah,
So it does throw
understandable.
us off on our schedule, but it's an involved exam. And then the splint therapy we charge as a phase one. And the reason why we do that, philosophically speaking, is that if I haven't helped the patient with splint therapy, I don't want to put them in orthodontics. And so we try to do that as kind of a diagnostic phase as much as it is a therapeutic phase to some
Got it.
extent. And then because
As it
honestly,
should
some
be.
people,
It
as
should
it
be a
should be,
it should be a diagnostic phase, because what
yeah,
happens if you put them in CR, they've been in an adaptive position, they were class 2-ish and on
yeah,
when you saw them, and now in centric, they're a full cusp class 2. Your entire
absolutely.
treatment plan just changed.
100%. Yeah. And some people we don't help. Some people I do everything I can to help them with their pain and I can't help them. And so then I don't want to confine them to being forced into orthodontics. So we then make alternate referrals on an as needed basis. But does that happen very often? The answer is honestly no. Majority of people we are able to help. But because of that reason, and we tell people that, we always tell people in the beginning, your prognosis is unknown, meaning that we hope to help you, or I think it's a favorable outcome. But at the bottom of their treatment letter, it always says your prognosis is unknown. And I think that's what people get scared of, is that, well, what if I can't help this person? Because you always think about that one, right? And
Right.
then we get stuck on that one.
Always worst case scenario is the only thing you think about.
Right. But that's not, you're going to help so many people, especially as orthodontists. We understand occlusion so well that we can also manage the changes. So as you mentioned, someone does drop back from a Sunday bite, or I think you and I will eventually get into restricted arc of closure. Potentially a lot of people need
What
to have
makes you
more
say
overjet.
that? Why would we get into
It's a hunch. But,
Spoiler alert, restricted arc of closure is coming, people.
But those patients need help to have more overjet. They need to come more anteriorly with their mandible. So how do we do that? We do that. That's our job, right? That's what we do.
It's just a smart and savvy way to leverage your biggest asset. We didn't invent shared space. That's been around for a while, but we see how it's really booming, whether it's Airbnb and putting that spare bedroom in your house on Airbnb for a couple extra $100,000 a month, your car that's sitting in your driveway. Now there's Turo. So WeWork, it thrived for a very long time. It's still around. But the shared space idea hasn't really entered orthodontics. There's limited spaces it hasn't entered, but we're kind of bringing a nuance, an opportunity to this space to leverage additional revenue with your biggest asset.
So we don't keep people in suspense. We've talked about Airbnb, Turo, we've talked about these fun things. Tell everybody a little bit about what does CMS do, right? In its general concept, how can I, as an orthodontist, make money on a day when I could be out skiing or playing golf or traveling the world with my family? My office is closed for a week and I'm traveling with my kids and my wife. And yet my team is still working in the office doing emergencies and doing what they got to do, but I'm making money. Please explain to everybody how this works.
Yeah, exactly. And it's under full control, obviously, of the owner of the platform, our clients. So you can think of it, everybody has underutilized space in their practice, whether you think of it as Saturday and Sunday, evenings, maybe a Tuesday, things like that. So there's opportunities to really leverage that underutilized space, generate revenue for yourself that way as well. So what Cloud Med Spas brings to our clients, and I like to use the analogy of OpenTable because I think that's one of the easiest comparisons we have. Right. OpenTable is a software platform that empowers restaurants to run very efficient seating schedules, right? They want to maximize the seating at lunch, at dinner, things like that. And so their system really kind of tells them where they are from a capacity standpoint, how the tables turn, things like that. That is sort of what our software brings to the table. So our clients plug in their availability. It might be one evening a week. It might be one Tuesday a week where it's for a couple hours. And it might be every Saturday. And our system is able to communicate how many possible hours that could churn, and the opportunity for an industry like medical aesthetics, who is driving a huge wave of entrepreneurs in medical aesthetics and allowing them to access space in addition to product that they need in order to treat their clients.
Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings: entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
I want to start by just saying thank you. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
My pleasure, man. I feel very fortunate, very lucky to have been placed in the position to be able to help inspire, motivate, and educate folks. And my background, I think, is different than a lot of other trainers. I think the reason why we sold 11 million DVDs of P90X, I mean, at 20 years, it's pretty psycho. And we haven't made DVDs in the longest time. Everything's streaming now. But the fact that we sold that many in that time frame is freakish, because there was nothing else like it. I mean, the set was really cool, and the casts were friends, and they were really cool, and the routines were unique and different than anything. And the whole muscle confusion thing, which is a made up term, they were like, there's no such thing as muscle confusion. I know, because we made it up, and now there is, because we made it up and people do it and it works. People working on their weaknesses more than their strengths, and that kind of a thing. Just getting people uncomfortable, giving them modifications and things. They can go hardcore. They can mellow out if they need to. So it really was, and it was just the way that I trained, my celebrities, Tom Petty, Billy Idol, Annie Lennox, Bruce Springsteen, those folks, and others, and a lot of other clients, because I just knew that kind of variety would just keep people from, like I said, from getting bored, injured, or plateauing. And so that's still the way I train, and nothing's changed since. And the odd thing is that no one's ever tried to really duplicate it. You would think you would see, there were a couple of versions, people trying to intimidate. Not intimidate.
They can
impersonate me
intimidate while
in
imitating.
some way, but it's hard. You know what I mean? Because I have had my life up to this point, and all the experiences that I've had. So it was just unique that way, and thank God that we decided to get outside our comfort zone, to put people outside of theirs. So the combination worked.
You said something really interesting, by the way, there along the way, where you talked about muscle confusion, because one of the things I talk a ton about with orthodontists and other entrepreneurs is the idea of a unique selling mechanism. And when you have a unique selling mechanism, you need to name it. And you need to name it something that nobody else can compare to. Because P90X had muscle confusion. No other workout you could work out with Sean T. He didn't have muscle confusion, right? No. And so I was trying to tell orthodontists that whatever you're doing in your practice is likely not a whole lot different than the other high-end practices, but give it a name. Name it, because then nobody can compare to you. And it doesn't mean that naming it and making up a name demeans it in any way. It just gets people into your funnel in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. And I've been trying to say that for years. So it was great to hear you talk about that.
Well, it's hard to introduce something new into the lexicon, right? So, whatever it is, it's really neat that you can create something that didn't exist 10 minutes before, and then over the course of time, make it so popular that everybody knows about it. And so that's what we did. And as you and I were talking before we got on, the other factor, the other variable here is that I'm a goofy dude, and I try to make fitness fun, and I'm pretty good at the cueing thing, and so cueing is everything. Especially, for example, if you're doing the yoga, right? You're in downward dog. You can't see what I'm doing, or you got to, it's got to be all about how I describe it. Spread your fingers, straighten your arms, drive your booty into the sky, get the heels to the floor. I visualize what it's supposed to look like properly, and hopefully that translates into the people who are watching. And that's just that either you're good at that or you're not. There's a lot of trainers with all these degrees and certifications, but they're kind of boring and they're kind of dull, and they don't translate the message very well. And, their audience is smaller than mine is. And so, it's all good, and we're all helping somebody, but it's nice to be popular.
I have just a few criteria. So we're talking perforations with the piezo.
And essentially, that sometimes may vary, but my general rule of thumb is if the male is 25 or female is 30 plus, then that will be, I'll be doing a piezo in the midline. I may do a little bit more aggressive for someone who is older and then really massive and really narrow maxilla. I might be very, very light on that as far as, if somebody is more slender. In females, traditionally, they really split almost with no issues at all. It's the males that are having, bigger issue. But so far, my oldest male is 63, which successfully split. And I have a tons, 50 plus. So, nice. And I know that might sound like an outrageous claim, but come check my records to see that's true. I have not had a failures in the past couple of years with the expansion. Doesn't matter age or gender.
It's amazing. So. And folks, you did hear him correctly. He said it real fast, but he is using a piezo for splitting a palate. And his technique, if I remember correctly, is obviously going up the palatal midline. And I think you wrap it over the facial of the anterior, or do you not?
Correct. If there has to be a nasal spine release, but it depends on sometimes the roots are so high up, and then the area that above the roots is so small that I might not do it. But I generally, you got to go into the palate.
And so the most common question I think you got from the group of people you presented to in RD was, what's your turning protocol, right? Like that was such a big deal to everybody, is like, what's your turning protocol? And to be honest, there's a lot of leeway there when it comes to turning protocols.
Again, there's so many turning protocols. However, even the way I conclude this is from my MSc days. So whenever I've had more than one occasion, I would start turning 4 to 6 turns a day, thinking, the more the better. Right. And then they'll come back a couple of weeks, and I see the MSc started bowing out, and it's inevitably failed. And on some of those occasions, I turned it back, and I started, let's just go slowly. Maybe it's just too soft to do this fast. And then I started doing 1 crank a day. And then all of a sudden, on the second try, the patient split. I mean, I'm talking about adults. So, and that's how I concluded personally, I don't have any research data, that the slower it goes, the better. Just a very, very gentle buildup of the force. So even with the custom Marpies, I never go, I start with 2 turns per day, and then I slow it down based on the need and how good they're expanding.
What we teach is going to attract forward-thinking people. It just is. So if we pick this up and we recreated it in the restaurant space, we're going to attract Guy Fieri, Bobby Flay, and Gordon Ramsay. Just like we've done in orthodontics, attracting basically any doctor you see that's on stage or faculty for a line on the dental monitoring speakers, the OrthoFi speakers, they're almost all our customers. But trying to get the masses to think the way they do is really difficult. And again, this just isn't orthodontist, or this is any entrepreneur, business owner on the planet. Right. And there's so like I said earlier, there's so many mistakes people make when thinking experience. But let me break it down this way. Every business has 2 experiences, right? So in your world, you've got the clinical experience, but you also have the practice experience, but then you also have all the non-clinical, the business experiences, how people are spoken to on the phones, the content you're creating on your digital marketing channels. When people type in Invisalign as an example, what does your website look like? Your YouTube station? Is there content that makes you different and unique compared to the other 20 places I could call? And kind of off the cuff, just real thinking about this. And this is something that I think is an important lesson for everybody. 2 things is one, when you become, and I know this terminology isn't positive, but when you become commoditized, so there's 6 Italian restaurants within 20 miles of your house or 10 minutes of your house. The restaurant that has the best food no longer wins. That, of course, is part of the recipe and a very, very important part of the recipe. But the person that ends up winning that game is the culture, is their digital marketing content, how you just described. Can the waiters upsell the table while the table feels really damn good about it? Do they know how to present desserts in a way to get somebody to buy the most expensive one that otherwise wouldn't have bought one at all? How do you get them to sell and present the specials in a way to get each person to buy a $20 more expensive special for the evening rather than the on menu? And there's an art to all of that. But it's critically important to understand that the clinical skill sets, just like the chef abilities, is not enough when you're commoditized to win at the highest possible levels. The other piece, and I see this with clinicians, and I fall into it. So I fly planes, have my license, and then being like I said, being an umpire in professional baseball, I can pilot nerd you all day long. I can, rule book nerd you all day long. But the problem is just like with all of you, is that whatever passion you have doesn't mean the person that you're talking to has that same passion.
Exactly.
And if they do, I mean, that's usually, you call that person a friend a lot of times, right? You have things in common, you talk about the same stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, if you become in the clinical weeds, that's a good way to talk people out of buying from you. And that's where, I think we're down to earth people. I'm proud to have the biggest names in this industry as customers. It's something I'm really proud of. We have a 99% customer retention rate. We rarely lose them. And I'm proud of it. But, we're down to earth. And I just think that it's really, really hard to convince the masses in any industry that there's really 3 things that you need to kick butt, no matter what business you are. And you've got to have a great culture, which means your leadership team has to have ongoing training on how to be great leaders. You've got to commit to training your people in a way that other people business, and that's what, forget orthodontists, what other people business, people over procedure operation is out there. You've got to train your team how to interact in a way that other people won't. And you've got to commit to putting in the work to creating digital marketing content that makes you unique. And everyone's business is a story. A restaurant has it because we're on that topic, and you all as orthodontists and all the other doctors that might be listening, you're a story. Your culture starts that story. Your digital marketing is another chapter. Your new patient phone call is another chapter. What happens before they show up, when they show up, all of these are their own unique individual businesses. And we just, with New Patient Group, happen to take that journey under one roof and help you with every one of those chapters. You're not required to get the whole thing, but that's the reason why I founded the company is every consumer interaction, make sure your brand is advancing forward. Because all it takes is one negative interaction, or not even negative. There's just sometimes people don't know what to say. They don't know what they don't know. So they may be saying things that cost them sale. And you can't, your practice management software doesn't spit out the lost opportunities, right? It spits out data that you can see, but there's hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss in every small business out there that they can't put their finger on. It's just very difficult to get people thinking inside their doors rather than outside.
You said 10x instead of 2x. Can you explain visually what that means? What is a 10? If I'm 10xing, give me an example of what that means in remote monitoring.
Yeah, I love this concept. It's one of my favorite. I love leadership principles, all these things. But the concept is, and this comes from Dan Sullivan's teachings in his book, when you want a 10x a mindset or a result, you can't do it the same way you're already doing it, right? So if you want to double the income of your office, well, you got to do double the work on how you currently operate. Okay, so if that's traditional braces, you're going to have to add double the amount of chairs, double the amount of appointments, all the things. Well, if you want to 10x a result, do it 10 times, you have to change everything you're doing. So you need to automate processes. You need to empower other people or technologies, dental monitoring, for example, to help you, what I call sift away the trivial many things that can be automated and focus on the vital few things. So I take people through a journey on how to do that in their current practice, to go away from that traditional mindset. We're all doing, right? We're seeing everybody back so often, doing traditional mechanics, all the things, and how to digitize the practice to a full, what I call a 90% custom digital. Instead of that share of chair effect, 90% custom digital where you're monitoring all your cases. You don't schedule the next appointment because you don't know when they're going to be ready. You leverage technology to its 10th degree, and that's how you 10x results. So it's not only for your experience, but it's for your patient's experience. And then also, you got to also consider the ROI on this, right? How do you actually make it profitable by using technology? Because we all know if you add more technology, you don't offset it by other things, you're actually going to be losing money. So
Exactly.
It has to be a win all the way around. That's what I take people through a journey on.
I think that thinking that social media will be the best vehicle for practice growth is a pretty myopic view. It can be for a very few among us. And for every Grant Collins, there are hundreds who try to do that, and thousands, and fail at it. And I guess I would say it like this. To really be successful at today's social media, you have to have star power. It is about the short form videos that require a lot of creativity. You have to be good on camera. You have to be creative. You have to know how to edit, or you have to outsource those things. And to be frank, as you alluded to, very few among us are built for that. Okay. And you have to build a platform. And a lot of that comes in, to be honest, in getting in at the right time. And there was sort of, the window was open on TikTok for a little bit. And in most ways, it's probably closed. The window for Instagram has since closed in many ways. Okay, there's always exceptions to that. But, those that have moved the needle for their practice growth with social media, I would assume it's a pretty small number relative to the degree of attention that it garners when it comes to marketing. Now, when I was in the shower this morning, about 15 minutes ago before this lecture, I coined a term, and I think it's relevant to this, and I'm calling it Dr. Time marketing. Okay. And what I'm getting at is that I think marketing, like a big, centering concept, is Dr. Time marketing. From your meeting, that idea of money comes and goes, but time only goes. Yep. And you will find that when I started my practice with 0 patients, what did I have a lot of? I had a lot of time, didn't have a lot of money. But there will be a point at which in your practice, whether you're an associate, a partner, an owner, whatever, where time will be the most valuable currency. Amen. And in that sense, Dr. Time marketing is what you want. And social media is very, very, very expensive when it comes to time, if you're going to do it well. Yeah. And then the other thing I see, and I'll end with this and we can jump into the next thing, is I see a lot of people that don't want to do it. And so they're sort of reluctantly diving into this thing and doing it and trying to copy trends and do something just like someone else did it and doing it so poorly that I don't know that it's helping anyone. It's certainly not helping them. And so my general guiding principle for life is if it fills your cup, do it. It does not have to build your practice if it fills your cup. But I feel like for most people, it's emptying their cup. And then why are you doing it?